Philogene is unlike any real estate investor I have spoken with so far. He has multiple professional roles in addition to operating a real estate investment company. He's a senior executive, restaurateur, lieutenant colonel of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, a board member, world traveler, and a key principal of JMP Investment Group. In our conversation, Maurice presented me with a different perspective for investing in multifamily real estate, one centered on lifestyle design versus scaling. He suggests we focus on designing our lifestyle to where you decide the who, what, and where, and achieve real freedom. Maurice, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Dion. Thanks for having me.
All right. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you transitioned into real estate with JMP Investment Group?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for having me on today. I think it's a familiar story with most investors. I started in single-family housing, just buying my own place to live back in my early 20s. And my story runs I figured out that I could make a little bit of passive income by holding on to that place. Yeah, and it was back at the beginning of the real estate boom at the 2000s, right? So when I bought it, a couple months later, it was worth $30,000 or $40,000 more. I kind of figured it out, and then over time, I think in that first year, I bought 10 additional, and then over 14 years or so, just not knowing what we know now about multifamily investing, I kept buying single-family residences in the form of condominiums, and over time, just kept using regular income to pay them off. Income from W-2 employment, income from being military, income from the rents from previous places. And then finally, I found myself with a portfolio of paid off places, about 18 or 20 of them, I can't recall now, which put me in a very unique position of having passive income and being able to control my time. And then fortunately, I was looking for growth just as a person and as an investor. And it got me thinking about where I should be and what I should be doing. And then I found multifamily investing, and there was the transition. It was more from a personal growth perspective as an investor and as a person wanting more challenges than it was I was chasing money or something like that. Because by that point, I had found myself in a pretty good position.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit more about this, the personal growth aspect? Because oftentimes when I speak with investors, normally it's, out of a desire to scale. They say, okay, I want to scale, or I just want to make more money. But this is the first for me to hear about the personal growth aspect. So can you give us a little bit more insight into that?
Yeah, and I'm glad we're talking about that because I am growing as an investor, and I am getting larger, and I've done X number of multifamily and mobile home park deals over the past 3 years. But that is not why I'm in this. If you go to my Instagram page or talk to me in person, the biggest thing that I always tell people, or when they ask me about investing, is I ask them what their goals are. And my goal was to always control my time. I always knew that this whole life thing that we're doing, even when I got into corporate America, when the notion of competing with my peers to get to the top and be the CEO and do this and be the valedictorian and all that, I was never interested in that. I was always interested in how can I control my time such that I can go do my passions. My passions are more traveling around the world. I've visited 96 countries now, spending time with my family. I am very much so a man of service, having served in the military for 22 years, and I'm still a police officer. I like doing that in a lot of ways. So everything that I do from a real estate perspective, in terms of passive income, even from a restaurant perspective, because I own a bunch in DC, those are passive income streams for me. It is all so I can create time. A good example of that is this summer, I'm actually stopping all my investment moves at the moment. I'm slowing everything down. I have 2 active deals that I need to close out. I'm leaving my active employer for a while. I took a leave of absence, and I'm going to go travel around the world with my kids. So, the growth aspect, I guess, Dion, back then was I wanted to keep finding ways to generate additional passive income, but it was never to create some behemoth company or something like that. In fact, I push against it. I don't want office space. I don't want employees. People have asked me several times or told me several times I should have employees just because of my size. Not interested in it whatsoever. What I'm interested in now is just helping people, but continuing to control my time as much as possible. And then lastly, legacy has come into play now. So most of the time when I'm doing deals, it's not from I'm trying to have more units, I'm trying to have more under management. It is more from how can I position these assets to take care of my kids later on down the road.
That's very interesting perspective. It kind of reminded me, in a sense, like your portfolio is scaling and growing, right?
Right.
But you're not necessarily kind of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not like scaling the business in the sense, like you just said, you're not looking to add employees. You're not looking to grow that part, because that takes away from your primary objective, which is you want to be able to spend more time with your family, service, and these other things that you're really passionate about, right?
Yeah, that's totally spot on. And listen, this is such a good topic, and I want to be like, I hope your listeners really hear what I'm about to say. Somewhere along the line, we forgot that the 9 to 5 that we do every day was intended that you could work so you could take care of your family and then get to a point where you didn't have to work again if you don't want to, right? There's nothing wrong with working, because working is a lot of people's passion. But for some reason, we have plugged into this matrix thing and we go to work as if it is what we were put on this earth to do. That's so backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that in the 9 to 5 and even in the corporate space, but I have also found that in the investor space. As soon as I started getting into the multifamily space and acquiring a lot of apartment buildings and mobile home parks, it seems like people are competing with each other for the number of units. And that's all I ever see now on LinkedIn and on podcasts. People jump right into how many units they have. And that is not the goal. But I think the goal of this entire thing was to create streams of passive income, collect assets that will pay you, and then use that income to live the best life that you're supposed to live, right? So I talked to you a little bit about the traveling, and I'm super passionate about the traveling. When I say 96 countries, it means 96 countries that I've spent at least 2 weeks in. Last weekend, I was in Lebanon. In 2 weeks, I'll probably be back in Germany for some stuff. Last year, I was in in Finland 5 times. Because that's my passion, and the passive income that my businesses generate allow me to go do those types of things. Now I want to spend more time with my kids. My son is in his 3rd year of college, so we're going to take a moment and we're going to go travel. I have a 7-year-old as well. I'm picking him up for at least a month this summer, and we're going to go travel because he goes to a Spanish immersion school. So I'd like to go to Spain, assuming all this virus stuff calms down, or maybe somewhere in South America. But I want him to experience the world in a unique way, right? I am not in this investing thing to build some massive business. And I understand that is a lot of people's goals. No, man, my goal is to live my life to the freaking fullest. So the day that I know that I'm getting ready to go out, I know that I've done everything that I wanted to do. And if we learn anything from the most recent public events with Kobe's passing and what have you, none of us are promised tomorrow. None of us. So I'll be damned if my only goal is to collect units and to collect more and more money just to compare it with other people's. It's just ridiculous. So I am very harsh on the people that I mentor right now when I ask them about their goals to really, really focus, because there are people who own just a couple of condos, make a couple grand a month in passive, and are living in Thailand, living the dream. Yet we're over here trying to compete with each other for the number of units we have under management and create systems and processes and all that to build something so they can go live in Thailand one day and live the dream. I mean, it's just backwards to me. So, yeah, I am passionate about that. And, it's something I hope that your listeners hear from someone who's been investing for a long time.
So would you say, from your perspective, and I ask this because, like, take, for example, the business that I started 10 years ago in Beijing,
Mhm.
I got into that business thinking, okay, great industry is growing, double digits every single year, I'm going to make good
Yeah.
money, and have a lot more time, and freedom. It was completely opposite to what I thought. I was working 7 days a week, 16 hours a
Yeah.
day, So do you think that the syndication business, for most people, really it's just you're leaving one full-time job to go into another full-time job. If you're, the active syndicator, you're not an LP, on the deals.
I, the answer to that is it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I am making a conscious choice that I will not make this into a job. If you come into the syndication business and you have a pipeline of 12 deals that you have to get done, more power to you. You are phenomenal. You are great at what you do. I totally get it. With that pipeline of deals comes management of investor goals and personalities. I take people's money very, very seriously, right? So if I am managing someone's money with an investment, you better believe that I'm going to wake up every day and make sure that that person is going to get the max amount of return because their family is dependent on that money. I take that very seriously. We syndicators get into this thing where we close out one deal, and I've had this, right? We close out one deal, we are immediately off to the next deal. Like 100% we're off to the next deal because that's who we are. And we want it to be great, right? And we want to build and we want to scale and those things. But I found myself right back what you're talking about, which is, goodness, in 2019, I closed, I want to say 6 deals between 18 and 19. And I have another pipeline here for 20. It's never going to stop. It's never going to stop, right? So it's really a conscious choice. And I think that's the point that you're making. We get into the syndication thing because we want to generate streams of passive income for ourselves and our investors. But then we find that we are managing those streams of passive income and trying to acquire new assets such that we've just created another job for ourselves. And I am pushing 100% against that this year, which is I'm going to close the 2 deals that I have going on now. I'm going to fully take advantage of the fact that passive income is coming in. I'm going to go travel this beautiful earth for a while with my kids. And then I'll see what happens after that. The beautiful thing is, Dion, your education and my education in the syndication business doesn't go away. I'm still going to listen to podcasts. I'm still going to probably look for properties down the line in my spare time. I am just not going to let it overrun my life in the manner that I feel like some investors are letting themselves get into that space. But to some of their credit, some of them are so passionate about it. That's what they want to do. And I think that that's phenomenal. So I'm not suggesting it's a bad thing. I'm suggesting we have a choice to make. You can go that route and build a huge business. You can do it medium, part-time. I just don't want people to forget the whole reason why we got into the business, which was to live life to the fullest as much as possible. And that's what I've been pushing recently, especially on these podcasts and talking to people.
So it takes a lot of juggling, because I know for you have multiple things going on. As far you've got the syndication. I think you're still active duty, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're still.
Yeah. So,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead and tell us about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I do juggle a lot of things, and I get that, and I have over time developed my own systems and mechanisms for doing the things that I do. I'm still a corporate executive because I love my customers from a corporate perspective. I love my job from a corporate perspective. I've been with that company now. It's a global consulting firm. I've been with them for 22 years now. I can kind of see the horizon at this point because I'm 44 and there's other things that I want to do, but I love being there. I just retired from the military after 22 years. I made a conscious decision to retire. It was time. Still a street cop in the DC metropolitan area. I do it more part-time now. I don't leave it because I love helping people. It's my way of helping people, right? I patrol 2 days a week, and I love to do it. I have the syndication business where I'm like right? I'm pulling together usually apartment buildings or mobile home parks. I'm in the restaurant business as well. So, but all of these things, Dion, I do it in a manner that befits my lifestyle, and I have negotiated those things with all the stakeholders that are involved in each one, whether it's, the jobs or the investments or even with family, and it's all managed in such a way that I am honestly living life the way that I think I was intended to live it. People may say, we don't have enough time in the day to do all those things. Yeah, you do. You will make time for the things that you love, right? Which is exactly why I'm shutting down towards the summer to make time for these two boys and my family that I love to go do some extraordinary things around the world and what have you. But even today, I was up at 4 a.m. on the computer working on the real estate stuff. Right now, I'm going to take my son to school. It's 8:15 in the morning here. And then I'm going to work on consulting stuff all day. I'm going to pick up my son, kiss him, do homework with him, and then I'm going to go patrol tonight for my police department. Because I want to do all of those things because those things make me happy. You can juggle these things, right? But I do it all because I'm so enjoying it. It's the way that I want to live my life. The syndication thing is not going to overrun any of it. And actually, one last thing, and I know I said a lot, but all the careers or what have you, they are starting to wind down. Because here's my thought. I'm 44 years old. I'm relatively healthy. I'm strong. I have a decent amount of passive income coming in. I can do all the things that I want to do now and not wait till I'm 65, 70, 75, right? So I'm going to do them now. And it's time to take a moment and spend time with family and do those things. So yeah, I have a lot going on, but it was all purposeful. And I'm slowing a lot of things down, and that's very purposeful as well.
So throughout this whole process, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges that you've been faced with?
Peers.
Peers?
Yeah. Business is not a challenge. Listen, if you talk to any forward-leaning A personality, military type like myself, street cop type like myself, been in the executive game for 22 years like myself, I've seen it all. From growing up in inner city Boston to, no collar, white collar, blue collar. I've been all around it. So when you ask me about putting together, a $10 million deal, all you have to do is get the right people around you and educate yourself. So that was never hard for me. And I don't get scared by the next challenge at all. What I found as soon as I got into this business, I was melding right back into society, what society tells us to do. And that has been a challenge. That scared me a little bit. And by that, I mean, listen, when we were in high school, we were competing against each other so we could all be the valedictorian, right? That's what society tells us to do. You get into the corporate space and everybody's jockeying for position and everybody wants to be the CEO or the director or whatever. No, I made conscious decisions to not go that route. When I got into syndication, I found myself merging into that space with other people. I meet amazing people like yourself and, the Ferrisses of the world and the Blancs, and you listen to the Blancs of the world and Grant Cardones, and you're like, man, I got to do that. You hear all this stuff and it makes you feel like what you have done is not enough. Whoa. And it catches you and you start making mistakes because you're trying to keep up with everybody. When in reality, no, man, you've already created enough income such that you can go live the life of your dreams. But yet we do this thing where we go and we compete and we want to grow and scale. And let me listen to the next podcast that has the next tool that I can use and virtual assistants that I can use to be better and bigger and faster. And no, man, that was the biggest challenge. I noticed that I was getting into that space probably in October of last year. I was starting to compete, not with myself, but with what the syndication industry was telling me to do, which was grow, scale, as much as possible. I think because I've taken the position I've taken and actually slowed down a bit, I spend more time with my mentees now. I spend more time with the business partners I actually care about. There's two particular groups that I run in. One, we just closed on a building in Tennessee, and we're working on another one together. Man, I love that group so much. I don't need to go work with 50 groups to go get 50 additional buildings. Like we have enough, So that would be my biggest challenge is I found myself starting to emulate what everybody in the industry is saying about growth, growth, growth. Nah, brother, take a step back, live, live, live as much as possible. And I'll take that any day over all the things that we're telling each other to do.
So how did you make that that shift? Like, because this is what you were getting, and I mean I hear this too a lot. So how did
Yeah.
you make that shift? You said, you know what? No, this is not right. This, well, at least for
Yeah.
me, this is not right. Right? I want to do it my way. So how did you make that shift and get over that? Overcome that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what helped me was, look, if you have heard any of my other podcasts, I hope people go look at my Instagram page because I'm really espousing this. I started traveling when I was 15. I'm a language speaker. I speak 4 languages: French, Creole, Portuguese, and English, obviously. Being around the world doing some of the unique things that I've done, whether from a military perspective, consulting perspective, or just Maurice looking at a wall map, picking a place to go, and I just bounce. I just roll out. I have met so many people and been immersed in so many things. When I am out in the world, to include the States as well, I find that my brain is firing in a different way. Like I'm constantly like learning from people. Man, and it makes my heart sing. Like it genuinely makes my heart sing. You could probably hear it from my voice, right? Like I can't wait to get on the road this summer with my kids. That perspective of being all over the world and interacting with so many different people and learning and teaching people things, but also learning from them and learning by osmosis, makes me not want to succumb to what I consider the matrix, right? The getting up every day and pressing repeat and doing the same thing for the rest of my life. Even in the syndication space, you will find yourself in that rut where, goodness, you just closed on a 100-unit building for $6.5 million. And the next day, before even celebrating that win, we're off to the $11 million syndication deal that we got to get done. No, my heart doesn't fire when I'm doing those things. My heart fires when I'm out in the world connecting with people. It's just that real estate has given me the money and the funds and the time to go do those types of things. So when you say, how do you have that perspective? I'm going to say that the travel probably gave it to me. And then I've always had this thing where I wanted to be free. I wanted to control my time. I will not give up my time for the sake of money, because money is just a tool. You're supposed to use money to create time. We're going after so much money, we're giving all of our time up. You're going to end up 85 and like Scrooge by yourself, not having experienced the world or whatever it is you want to experience. It could be something local. If you constantly focus on building, growth. You can do it at a nominal pace, or you can do it with the best partners and be as intimately aware of them and their needs and work together slowly. So that's kind of my perspective. I've always had this worldly perspective of travel and immersing myself in culture. And I've always had this perspective of freedom. And for me, freedom equals time. I kind of steal this from Tim Ferriss, but freedom equals time plus mobility. So I create time with passive income, and I create mobility with not getting myself involved in too many things that I can't pull myself out of. So that's exactly why I do not want to build a massive business. It will restrict my mobility such that I can't go do the things that I want to do when I want to do them. So that's how I've kind of kept myself straight. But back to the challenge question, I forgot that perspective because I was starting to meld into this syndication industry a little bit too much, and I've gotten a hold of it, if you will. I'm good now.
Yeah, you mentioned Tim Ferriss. Were you referencing the 4-Hour Workweek, that book that he has?
Yeah. I picked that book up 10 years ago, and I probably reread it once a year. And I have implemented so many of the tips and tricks and virtualizing my mail and travel hacking things that he espoused in that book. Not for everybody, but it was absolutely for me, and it was a game changer for me.
It's interesting because I remember in that book, how he talks about the new rich, and and then he there was one thing that he mentioned in there where
I think he went to like, it was a networking meeting or something, because you're talking about peers, right? And comparing yourself
right.
and yeah. So he mentioned something along the lines like, someone asked him, well, how big is your business? And he was like, oh, I'm the only employee, right? You remember that part, right?
Yeah,
Something along those lines. But his business was, cash flow positive. It was like what, $50,000-$60,000 a month. Like, it was doing really
month.
a
And
month.
people want him to grow more.
Yeah.
It's come on, man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he's only putting in 4 hours a week. That's
Right.
crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was putting in more time than that, but it's the
Mhm.
principles of what he was talking about in that book of, you create these muses which generate income, and then you use that income to go execute on your passions. Now, people's passions can be business. I think, Jeff Bezos's passion was creating a business such that people like me don't have to go to the grocery store, don't have to go to the mall, I don't have to go anywhere anymore because of Bezos. Like, he fundamentally changed the world, right? Elon Musk does not have to work anymore. But the reason why he works is because that work is his passion. And that's what I'm suggesting is, if syndication in real estate is your passion, man, go full bore for it. My passion is not real estate, even though I'm doing very well in it and I love it. My passion is freedom. And I use Tim Ferriss's equation, freedom equals time plus mobility. Real estate is just a piece, right? This syndication thing we do is supposed to support whatever you're passionate about, whatever freedom means to you. But yeah, the 4-hour work week, if folks on this call or listening to this podcast have not read it, I highly recommend it. I implemented so many tools from that, and I reread it, and it's probably one of the first books that I recommend to people time and time again.
So what would be your key piece of advice for people, looking at real estate syndication?
Yeah, no, okay. Thank you for asking that question. Please know what your goal is. So I get a ton of people. I started posting on Instagram about 2 months ago, and I have 1,500 followers. I'm like, damn, okay. I absolutely love talking to people about this freedom thing and about this real estate thing. And the number one piece of advice I always say right at the beginning is, what's your goal? Like, why do you want to get into real estate? And people will say money and all types of weird stuff. And I'm like, man, then I don't think you should get into real estate. It's going to eat you up. But if you are passionate about, okay, I want to generate $3,000 a month, because if I generate $3,000 a month, it's going to do this for my kids. Or if I generate $5,000 a month, then I'm going to leave my job so I can go be a cook or whatever. Man, if you know what your why is behind this stuff, you will go balls to the wall. When I started in real estate back in my 20s, like I told you, I knew that I did not want to simply just go to work every day. I had a passion for figuring out, how the hell do I create freedom? That is why I gave up my 20s, bought single. I didn't know about multifamily, so single family was all I knew. I kept buying them. I kept managing them on weekends. I kept not going to the parties. When the downturn came, I got crushed in 2008. But I refused to file bankruptcy. I had such a passion to figure this stuff out. Every loan that I had a problem with, I negotiated with every single bank. And I think that was like 8 or 9 or 10 banks at the time. I came up with a solution for every problem that I had, because I wanted this freedom thing so bad. And that's why I hustled for it. From 2002 to 2014, man, it was a grind. And I earned the 6 figures of passive that I created, right? Now the multifamily has scaled it a bit, so you can see where I'm getting at, where I'm like, I don't need to make this thing massive. I'm doing fine. That is the tip that I will give people who come into real estate. Why are you doing this? Like, what is your passion behind it? What is it? Because if it is just money, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to lie to the banks on your loan application, or you're going to pick the wrong partners, or you're not going to see something in the due diligence realm. There has to be something more than, man, I just got to grab that money. Well, you can grab money a lot of ways. You can go rob a bank too, if it's all about money. But that, Dion, that's the first thing that's what I would tell your listeners. And the first thing that people who ask me questions in person or on Instagram or anywhere, conferences I started speaking at, what's your why behind it? Like, why do you want to do it? And it's okay if I'm just trying to get out of my job. then cool. Then let's go get out of your job. Let's figure out the number that gets you out. Let's create a couple deals to get to that number. Now you've gotten it. And, everybody's why transforms over time. So you will attack real estate different over time. But that's the number one thing I'll give people from an advice perspective is know your purpose and know your why or why you want to get into real estate in the first place.
I like, and I wanted to point out too, one thing was how you were more specific in your why. Like when you mentioned the why, you were giving the examples, like you gave examples of it's like X dollars or something like that,
Yes.
nothing vague where you say, oh, I just want to make a lot of money. Well, I mean, that's always a dream, right? But when you give it a number, a specific number, that's more specific, and I like how you did that.
It is. And can I tell you a quick, I know I can be long-winded because I'm passionate about this stuff, but I want to tell you one thing. So I have a friend who, when I was condominium investing, he figured out what I was doing and he asked me to help him, okay? He bought, along with me, he owns he knows I'm telling a story, I just don't tell his name. He bought 3 kind of luxury condos in the DC area, and he, for 10 years, took the rent and the money from his job at work, and he never went out and bought the Mercedes. He never went out and bought the stupid stuff. He paid off, I think he bought 4 and he sold 1, and he took the proceeds from the 1 and the rents from all the other. Long story short, he has 3 paid off condos in the District of Columbia, okay? On a monthly basis, it pays him anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a month, right? So it's $60,000 to $72,000 a year. That's the person who's living in Thailand. So he figured out that number. He moved and he runs a bar in Thailand now, okay, with a woman that he met over there, and he is phenomenally happy. The thing that he did that impressed me was he sat down with me and we do this thing called dreamscaping. Like, what is your dream? What is the number, the monthly number that is going to accomplish that dream? Okay, your monthly number, let's say it's $4,000 a month. All right, how many deals do we have to do to go get that 4,000, right? If you make your goals very, very specific, then you know exactly what you're doing. So if it's going to take 10 single family deals or 1 or 2 multifamily deals to get to that number, doesn't it make being a real estate investor that much more achievable? Like knowing exactly what you're going after, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I encourage people like, hey, Mo, I'm trying to get into real estate so I can get out of work. Well, all right, dude, what's the number? Well, living in DC, the number is probably more like 10 grand, 15 grand a month. It's harder. But if you can create 3 grand a month living somewhere else, or 5 grand a month and decide to move overseas to a tropical location, or 10 grand a month, if you want 10 grand a month, there's people who want 100 grand a month. And I'm all for it because that's their goal, right? Like, make your goals concrete and tangible and go after them. And, the whole 10X Grant Cardone thing, he's absolutely right. Your goals should be bigger because chances are, you shoot for the stars, you miss it, you'll land on the moon and you're going to do some pretty good things. But to your point, Dion, yeah, you should absolutely have a specific number in mind. Go crush that number. And then if you want to do more, then go do more after.
And what you just said too, another thing, just as a follow-up, I think a lot of people, what they don't realize, and I want to say Americans in particular, I grew up in the States, and the only place I ever visited outside of the country was Germany, and that was because my dad was in the service. And so at that time, while growing up, that's where we lived. We lived in Germany for like a year, and then we moved back. But it wasn't until I graduated university and I started working full time. And then after the financial crisis, I really started getting out and traveling. And I've been to multiple countries in Asia. A lot of people just don't realize how far $1,000 a month can go in some of these countries over here, like the Philippines. Beautiful place. That will take you a long ways in the Philippines.
I will tell you, I just spent 3 weeks in Bali, or 2.5 weeks in Bali, Indonesia. Okay, I was struggling to spend $100 a week, struggling, and I live in DC, so you go to the grocery store, you're spending $400 easy. The cost of living in the United States, depending on where you are, is astronomically higher than if we do it in other countries. the Scandinavian, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway, it's expensive, right? If you go to Indonesia, if you go to Brazil, if you go to Uruguay, Paraguay, Colombia, if you go to certain states in the United States, Alabama is beautiful. It's on the Gulf Coast. People just don't think about it. You can drastically improve your quality of life, create a couple streams of passive income, and live your dream. I have a friend who lives in Costa Rica right now. He moved down. He did a little bit of real estate, married a woman down there. He's got 6 kids. He travels back and forth. He's not making much more than probably most of the folks who are listening on this podcast. But he is living the life of his dream. You know what is keeping us in this country? This country is the best country in the world by far. We can generate enormous amount of income here in this country. But you know what's keeping us grounded? Marketing and commercialism. Because what people do here is we grind, we go to the 9 to 5, we do then we go get the big house with the white picket fence, and 2.5 kids and a dog, and we get the 5 Mercedes. And then we are prisoners to the job because we have to go pay those things all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have kept myself away from all of that. But for your listeners, yes, you can take whatever you're making here and have such a phenomenal life. Like Portugal, the cost of living in Portugal is like 20% of what we're doing here on average. Yeah, I mean, people should explore the world and explore their options. But by far, the U.S. is the best country in the world.
Yeah.
Flat out. I wouldn't have been able to accomplish what I accomplished, and I'm an immigrant kid, so I can say that with certainty.
Yeah. So, I totally agree with you on that. I love the U.S. I love my country and everything. I think like for me, like yourself too, like getting out and seeing the world and learning from other people, there's a lot of value in that. And, like you said, the money, it could really go a long way. I mean, you could have a completely different, quality of life, live the life of your dreams, by doing that. Yeah. So how could our listeners get in touch with you if they wanted to reach out?
Yeah. So, I am on Instagram. It's just Maurice Philogene on Instagram. That by far, I'm spending a lot of time talking with like-minded individuals, not just from a real estate perspective, but more so from a passive income, freedom, travel, lifestyle design. I'm really big on lifestyle design now. So Instagram is by far the best place. Maurice Philogene, just my first name, last name. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, first name, last name. And, back to my point of, I am not here to create a business. I'm here to create a life. I thought, when I started to have a relative amount of success and getting interviewed on podcasts like yours, and I'm super grateful because you helped me put a message out that I think I can help people with. I was like, yeah, I'm going to put up a website and create a front door so people know what I'm doing and come into the funnel and more investors. And I thought about it. I said, why am I doing? If I genuinely want to help people, just anyone who reaches out, I help them as much as I possibly can because I have enough for the family and for legacy, and I will continue to acquire. So I did not go get a website and do those things. That works for me. I'm not suggesting it works for every investor. I'm just trying to give a perspective to your listeners that not every person who's in the syndication, real estate, passive income space is trying to grow some massive thing. There are folks like me who just want the income to go live our best life now. But if you do want to reach out, Instagram would be the absolute best way to do it.